We are anonymous. We have no flag, no party, no single country we answer to. We are a collective voice that surfaces when power lies too comfortably and expects the world to look away. We don't whisper. We document. We connect what others try to keep separate. And right now, the picture coming into focus is one that terrifies world leaders and exposes Donald Trump as a destabilizing force on a global scale. This is Anonymous exposes world leaders erupt and issue a fatal warning to Trump. This story does not begin with speculation or rumor. It begins with facts spoken on camera, missiles recorded on radar, and diplomatic outrage voiced openly at international conferences. It begins inside the Oval Office, where Donald Trump once again stood before the press and declared himself completely vindicated by the release of the Epstein files. That claim was not just misleading, it was a lie of staggering proportions. Trump's name appears roughly 38,000 times across more than 5,000 Epstein-related documents. That is not exoneration. That is deep, repeated proximity to one of the most notorious criminal networks of the modern era. Yet Trump smiled, shrugged, and tried to spin exposure into triumph, assuming repetition would replace reality. In that same press conference, Trump casually mentioned that he had spoken directly with Vladimir Putin. The timing could not have been more alarming. Putin's name is also all over the Epstein files, and at that very moment, Ukraine was bracing for another wave of Russian attacks amid brutal winter conditions. Trump told reporters that Putin had promised him something extraordinary. Because of the extreme cold in both Ukraine and Russia, Putin would pause missile strikes. No ballistic missiles, no cruise missiles, no drone attacks. Trump portrayed himself as a back-channel peacemaker, a man trusted by the Kremlin to deliver calm in the middle of war. Trump went further. He relayed this supposed promise to Ukrainian leadership. The message was simple and devastating in its implications. You are safe tonight. Putin gave me his word. You will sleep without missiles. You will be fine. Volodymyr Zelensky believed that message enough to pass it on to his people. He went on social media and said that throughout the day, there had been no missile strikes or Shahed drone attacks targeting Ukrainian infrastructure. He suggested that this calm demonstrated something important. When the United States truly wants to change the situation, change can happen. And then everything collapsed. Within hours, Russia launched one of the most intense missile and drone barrages Ukraine had seen in months. Ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, Shahed drones, wave after wave. Residential complexes were hit. Apartment buildings burned. Explosions echoed through Kyiv again and again. Civilians fled into metro stations, huddling underground in freezing temperatures, believing they were safe because Donald Trump had promised them they would be. This was not a minor incident. This was a catastrophic betrayal that left civilians exposed and terrified. Journalists on the ground described the moment bluntly. Trump walked out to reporters and said Putin promised not to strike Kyiv or other cities, and almost immediately afterward, Russian missiles began raining down. This was not a misunderstanding. Either Trump repeated a lie from Putin without verification, or he knowingly passed along false assurances that put lives at risk. In either case, the result was the same. People suffered. People died. Trust was shattered. You can hear Trump's own words. He talked about the cold wave. He talked about asking Putin not to shoot for a week. He said Putin agreed.
Between Zelensky and Putin, tremendous hatred. I mean, it's a shame, but it's taken longer than we thought. I did call up President Putin, and he's agreed, he's put it out too. They have the same cold wave that we do. Maybe different because it's pretty far away, but it's the equivalent. And Ukraine's a very cold country. It's much colder than us. It's colder than, they say, on average, it's Canada or colder. And on top of that, they have a tremendous cold wave. Then I asked him if he wouldn't shoot for a period of 1 week, no missiles going into Kiev or any other towns, and he's agreed to do it, so it's something.
While those words were still circulating globally, Ukrainian cities were burning. That single moment became a turning point for many world leaders. It was no longer possible to pretend that Trump's recklessness was just rhetorical. It was operational. It had consequences measured in explosions and body counts. As this disaster unfolded, leaders from around the world were already gathering in Oslo for the Oslo Security Conference. What happened there marked a shift from quiet concern to open condemnation. Poland's deputy prime minister and foreign minister stood in a room historically associated with the Nobel Peace Prize and delivered remarks that cut through diplomatic niceties. He noted how often the Nobel Peace Prize had been mentioned lately in the news.
The Nobel Peace Prize is of some interest right now. Prime ministers get letters. Speaker of Parliament has stated this morning that unfortunately he will not be signing the ready-made nomination paper for the next Nobel Peace Prize.
He said that as foreign ministers, they have the right to nominate candidates. He stated clearly that if Donald Trump were to secure a fair peace for Ukraine, he would personally consider nominating him. Then he delivered the punchline. He would be the one to decide what fair means.
Apparently, as foreign ministers, we also have the right to nominate. I'm on the record saying that if President Trump secures a fair peace for Ukraine, I shall do it myself. But it's I who will decide what a fair peace is.
Not Trump, not Putin. He went on to mock Trump's fixation on renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, using it as an example of how Trump trivializes serious matters. He referenced the Deepwater Horizon disaster, pointing out that reckless decisions carry massive costs. $65 billion, half the value of a major company.
To convince you how serious this is, I once, a couple of years ago, I asked the chairman of BP how much it cost them to clean up the mess created by Deepwater Horizon. Do you remember? In the Gulf of America, once called the Gulf of Mexico. The total cost, the rescue operation, the cleanup, and the payoffs, and the legal costs, $65 billion, half the value of the company.
That is what arrogance looks like when it collides with reality. Norway's prime minister followed with words that struck an even deeper nerve. He spoke about the moment he saw the United States flag being removed from the World Health Organization building in Geneva. As a former leader within the WHO, he said that image made him profoundly sad.
As a former chief of staff of the World Health Organization 25 years ago, when I saw that picture last week of the US flag being taken down in front of the WHO building in Geneva, I thought, this is also very bad.
Yeah.
Not just symbolically, but strategically. He warned that there will be another pandemic. There will be new global health threats. And the idea that the United States can defend itself by abandoning international cooperation is dangerously wrong.
For security, because there's going to be a new pandemic, there's going to be new global health threats, and the idea that the US will defend the US mainland against health threats by pulling out of that cooperation is very, very serious. So, in understanding modern security, we have to get weapons right, and industries right, and command structures right. But these elements will still be absolutely fundamental. How we do cooperation on that, on trade, on health, and on new technologies.
Pulling out does not make America safer. It makes everyone weaker. He also addressed Trump's use of tariffs against allies. For decades after World War II, the global system moved toward lowering tariffs, building interdependence, and preventing conflict through economic integration. Trump reversed that trend using tariffs not as economic tools, but as political weapons even against allied nations.
A lead ally, the reintroduction of tariffs, which runs counter to what we have experienced since late 40s of tariffs being built down. So one thing is building tariffs up as a means of rebalancing trade. I think most economists will question, in the big scheme, whether that really works. But what we experienced 2 weeks ago, when the US used tariffs against allies as a political means to force through the perspective on Greenland, which in itself, wanting to grab land from another land inside an alliance, illustrates how this is changing. I could go on because there are many such examples.
The Norwegian Prime Minister pointed out how Trump used tariffs to pressure allies over issues like Greenland, illustrating a disturbing shift toward coercion within alliances themselves. Behind these speeches was a growing realization. The United States under Trump was no longer seen as a stable anchor of the international order. It was becoming a source of unpredictability and risk. At the same time, evidence continued to surface about Trump's financial entanglements with foreign powers. Reporting revealed that Trump received approximately $500 million from the United Arab Emirates, through his company World Liberty Financial. Around the same period, the Trump regime approved transfers of highly sensitive semiconductor technology to the UAE. This raised immediate alarms within the national security community. These chips are among the most classified technologies the United States possesses. Their misuse or transfer to hostile actors could pose severe risks. When asked directly about this investment, Trump did what he always does. He denied knowledge. He said his sons were handling it. He said crypto is popular. He claimed he was too busy dealing with Iran, Russia, and Ukraine to know what was happening in his own financial empire.
Mr. President, the Wall Street Journal reported that the royal family of Abu Dhabi invested hundreds of millions of dollars in World Liberty Financial. Can you explain why you decided to take that investment? Was that a transaction?
Well, I don't know about it. I know that crypto is a big thing and they like it. A lot of people like it. The people behind me like it. My sons are handling that. My family is handling it. And I guess they get investments from different people, but I'm not. I have all I can handle right now with Iran and with Russia and Ukraine and with all the things we're doing.
It was the familiar pattern. Deny, deflect, disappear. European leaders were no longer willing to tolerate that pattern. The president of the European Commission released a statement affirming unwavering support for Ukraine. Europe was sending hundreds of generators to keep the heat and lights on. Loan packages were being advanced. A 20th round of sanctions against Russia was being prepared. The message was unmistakable. Europe would continue to apply pressure on Russia regardless of Trump's erratic behavior. In parallel, NATO and Nordic leaders emphasized how Russia's aggression had backfired strategically. Finland and Sweden joined NATO, creating a continuous landmass of alliance territory from the Arctic Sea to the Baltic. This transformation strengthened intelligence sharing, military planning, and collective security. Leaders openly acknowledged that Putin's actions had achieved what years of diplomacy had not, and they emphasized that unity, not unilateral deals or backroom promises, was the only effective response. Poland's leadership stressed that the only way to deter Russia long-term was to degrade its energy sector and cut off resources to its defense industry. They warned that the Arctic was becoming a new region of tension and pledged that Norway and other partners would not face these challenges alone. European unity was no longer aspirational, it was operational. While world leaders were reinforcing alliances, Trump continued to undermine cooperation at home and abroad. Energy costs in the United States rose sharply under his policies. Household electricity prices increased by roughly 13%. During brutal winter storms, more than 1 million Americans lost power. At the same time, Trump threatened or canceled over 300 clean energy projects, reducing supply precisely when demand was spiking. Families across Arkansas, Colorado, New York, California, Illinois, Texas, and North Carolina faced higher gas and electricity bills. This was not abstract policy. This was survival. And Trump's denial of climate reality and hostility to clean energy made it more expensive for ordinary people to stay warm. Internationally, Trump's relationship with Zelensky continued to deteriorate. Public confrontations, tense meetings, and conflicting signals about security guarantees eroded trust. Ukraine, facing existential threat, began organizing emergency consultations with dozens of supporting nations to coordinate peace efforts and security guarantees. The implication was clear. The world could no longer rely on consistent leadership from Washington under Trump. At the same time, Trump escalated rhetoric against Iran, attacked immigration policies at the United Nations, and issued sweeping statements that alienated partners rather than building coalitions. Each move added another layer of instability to an already volatile global environment. This is why world leaders are no longer whispering. They are speaking openly. They are issuing warnings not just about Trump's words, but about his impact. They are preparing for a future where U.S. leadership cannot be assumed. They are strengthening alliances independently, sharing intelligence, coordinating sanctions, and planning defense strategies that do not rely on Trump's promises. The fatal warning is not metaphorical. It is about lives. It is about civilians misled into thinking they are safe. It is about global health systems weakened. It is about national security compromised by financial conflicts. It is about an international order strained to the breaking point by one man's recklessness. Donald Trump is not just controversial. He's dangerous. He lies about documents that expose him. He passes messages from dictators that get people killed. He enriches himself while weakening his country. He treats alliances as transactions and truth as optional. This is not normal. This is not politics as usual. This is a global alarm. We are anonymous. We are watching. We are recording. We are exposing. And now we leave this with you. Do not look away. Do not normalize chaos. Share this message. Talk about it. Demand accountability, because silence is exactly what reckless power depends on.